Hello everyone and welcome to the Single Player Podcast. I'm your one and only host, I am 16-Bit, and we got a good show for you this week. We're talking about the Nintendo Switch Lite, the Google Stadia, and just sort of reminiscing about YouTubers and content creators that I haven't heard from in years. So stick around, we'll be right back after this. Alright everyone, and I want to talk, just for a moment, I want to talk about this Nintendo Switch Lite that Nintendo announced. Most of you by now have already heard about it, but for the slim chance that you haven't, basically the Nintendo Switch Lite is the Switch as a dedicated handheld. There's no TV mode, there's no HD rumble, and the Joy-Cons are permanently attached to the system. Now, the way I see it is it's basically a more affordable alternative. This isn't going to replace the Switch. If anything, this is just a budget version for those who can't really afford the $300 price tag of the regular Switch. Personally, I have no need for it. I already have a regular Switch, so this isn't something that I'm into, but it's definitely for those who can't afford. It's kind of like the 2DS. Like the 2DS was the budget version of the 3DS and actually did very well. So, in fact, I think they're still making the 2DS. I think they stopped manufacturing like the regular 3DS and now it's just 2DS. But it's interesting. What I like about it though is that it has a standard D-pad. It's not the individual buttons that the Switch had. Don't get me wrong. That worked for Zelda Breath of the Wild, but it doesn't work for fighting games. I have the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection for the Switch. It's terrible with it. I have to play that with the Joy-Con, the single Joy-Con. But that's probably I'm kind of hoping that Nintendo will eventually release Joy-Cons with a standard D-pad, because that would just make it a whole lot better. But what's also interesting about it, I think Labo. I don't think it has Labo support. In fact, it kind of makes me wonder if, because there are certain games that do require to have like Joy-Cons detached. So I'm guessing this isn't going to work with like 1-2 switch and snipper clips. But it is really cool is that Nintendo announced, and this is why I think they announced it just recently, is that they also confirmed that there's going to be a special Pokemon Sword and Shield version, and it actually looks really nice. The buttons are red and blue, and it's white, and it's got like the two like cover Pokemon on it on the back, and it looks really, really nice. But this is why I think they announced it recently, because if you think about it, what is Nintendo's big game this year? It's Pokemon. Sure, I'm looking forward to Zelda Link's Awakening, but the big game, the one that everyone has wanted since Nintendo announced it as the NX, is Pokemon. That's the one thing. And that's also the one game that's really popular with kids. It seems that every generation, it seems that, Pokemon is one of those things that it's not a fad. It's one of those things that just every generation loves. And so every time a new Pokemon game comes out, that's like the big game for the consoles and for the handhelds. And so now that the Switch is getting its own dedicated Pokemon game, it makes sense to come out with a more affordable version for, kids who can't just a more affordable version for parents who can't really afford the $300 because, their kid wants Pokemon. So again, it just makes perfect sense, and I think it's really cool. I think the whole thing is really neat. I myself am gonna get Pokemon. I think I'm gonna get Sword. Definitely gonna get Sword because I always get sort of the blue game. Because like every Pokemon generation, you have the red and the blue. You have like the bright color and the dark color, and so I always go with the darker color. I think it's just because the first Pokemon game I ever played was blue, and so it just sort of became a thing. And then it was silver, and actually I skipped a few generations, but definitely. And then I think I got black. Definitely got black, and then I got Y. Yeah. So again, it looks really cool. Looks really neat. Speaking of Nintendo, this is now a Nintendo segment, by the way. Recently, I played Dr. Mario World, which is the mobile game that just came out. What's interesting about it is that it doesn't, like, when you think of Dr. Mario, you think of basically every Dr. Mario game. But it doesn't feel like Dr. Mario. Instead, it feels more like they combined Dr. Mario with Puzzle Bobble than anything. It's much more of a puzzle game. Again, it's alright. I think I played up to level 20? 21? I can't remember what level I ended on. But what kind of annoyed me about it is that it's one of those mobile games where they limit how many times you can play. I hate that. It always just kills it for me because once that happens, I basically just stop playing. You know what I'm talking about. It's like when you play a game and then suddenly they're like, oh, you've run out of plays. You now have to wait like 3 hours to play again. I hate that. Like I said, it kills the experience for me. And then I just don't play the game anymore. I don't know why I know why they do it. They do it because then you can go and buy it, but it's buy like extra lives and extra plays. But still, it's just a scummy thing to do, But I find the gameplay very interesting. That it doesn't play like Dr. Mario. It plays like Puzzle Bobble, which, by the way, that has me thinking, was there ever a Puzzle Bobble game for mobile? Because if there isn't, I'm kind of surprised. I mean, Puzzle Bobble was basically on every kind of console they could put it on. So, anyway, folks, I'm going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this. Alright everyone, and we're back. And before I continue, after I finished that last segment, Nintendo decided to announce that they're also going to be releasing a revision to the Switch that basically just has a longer battery, and I think they've improved the Bluetooth, and that's basically it. But the funny thing was that there was all these clickbait articles going around saying, oh my God, is this the Switch 2.0? Is this going to be more powerful? And it's like, no, folks. It's just going to be a regular Switch with a better battery and better Bluetooth. And that's it. But you can't tell people that because, people just want to hear what they want to hear. They believe what they want to hear. Anyway, moving on, I wanted to do a segment that about something that just sort of caught my attention earlier this week. And that was, I found out that apparently this past April, Classic Game Room officially ended their series. They're no longer making videos, and that surprised me. What also surprised me was the fact that no one really reported on it. I checked everywhere. No one reported that, oh yeah, Classic Game Room is ending. I mean, this is a show that had been going on for 12 years, and then they just died. Okay, that's it, we're done. And so I've been watching a lot of the old videos, but it's gotten me thinking about YouTubers that I miss. Gaming channels that I used to follow quite a lot, and they just sort of fell off the face of the earth. They stopped making the content, and they just, that's it. And the first one that came to mind was, of course, Spoony One. Now, when we think of when you're thinking of Spoony, you're probably thinking of that video Mr. Mediker did on That Guy with Glasses, and he talked about Spoony. And I gotta say, everything that Mr. Mediker said in that video was spot on. He is absolutely correct about Spoony. Spoony was one of those guys that you would watch, and he would talk about something you didn't really give a crap about, but he would make you give a crap about it. He was so entertaining that he would actually make you interested. He was one of the few reviewers that was actually informative, and he was funny. And I really enjoyed his old reviews. I mean, his Final Fantasy stuff was always funny. His Final Fantasy VIII review I really liked because it was basically spot on. Everything he was saying in that review was everything I felt about Final Fantasy VIII. But also his other stuff as well. He talked about NES games, and the Thing review was one of my favorites. The Nightmare review was interesting. The video on Nightmare is interesting because it was a show I had never heard of, and then, because I'm from America, I don't know what they have in Britain, and he just sort of makes you interested in a show that you have never heard of, ever. And it's a funny review. And it's just sad looking at Spoony these days. It really is sad. This is someone who was well known and well loved on the internet, and now his channel is basically dead. Okay? And he self-destructed. That's what happened. He completely self-destructed. He gained popularity, and then he just couldn't handle it. He started doing a whole bunch of other stupid things, and slowly stopped doing reviews and started doing vlogs, and then did his Livewire thing. And it's a shame. I really miss his old reviews, and I wish he would go back to doing that. You know what I loved? I loved the Ultima series. His review series. It was great. I had never known anything about Ultima until he did that series. I knew it was a game, but I had never played any of them. I had never had any interest in any of them. And so seeing him talk about that actually made me go out and actually play the games. That's when I found out. That's actually when I discovered GOG, because I found out they've got all the Ultima games on the site called GOG, and that's when I started my account. And so that's the thing that sort of just gets me, is the fact that he did a lot of good stuff. He hasn't done a review since 2016, I think. I think it was the Massacre at Central High, or was it Big Trouble in Little China for Commodore 64? I can't remember. It was either one of those. But he hasn't done anything since then. Instead, he just hangs out on Twitter and just sort of, that's it, and does his Livewire things. And it's just a shame. Another reviewer that I kind of missed, well, not a reviewer, just a YouTuber, is this guy called 2-Bit Gaming. And most of you probably never heard of this guy, but he used his show. It wasn't a review show; it was more of a variety show, if anything. He would talk about a whole host of topics. He would review games, but he would also talk about history. He would do repair videos. It was very interesting. He actually got me interested in things I'd never heard of. For example, he did a 3-part series on Bleemcast, which I didn't even know existed. If you don't know what it is, it's apparently this company called Bleem made a boot disc. First they made a boot disc for PC that allowed you to play PS1 games on PC, but then they made a boot disc for the Dreamcast that allows you to play like specific PS1 games on there. So, and like it smooths out pixels and it uses anti-aliasing. And again, very informative, very entertaining. I enjoyed it. And then he just sort of, 2010, he just sort of vanished. Just sort of fell off the face of the earth. And he hasn't made a video since 2010. And it's, again, I enjoyed his content. I really did. One more that I really sort of miss is Screw Attack. It's not okay, Screw Attack is more of a website than a YouTuber, but again, I miss Screw Attack because most of you probably know Screw Attack as Death Battle. Oh, Screw Attack gave us Death Battle. Oh yeah, but the thing is, there was a time before they did Death Battle when they did a whole host of stuff. You know, they had their podcast side scrollers. They had Hard News. They had Jose's Puntos. They had The Scoop. They had Clip of the Week. They used to do G1 Submission Sundays. They used to let G1s just submit whatever they wanted. Videos, articles, whatever. Actually, mostly videos. They did a whole bunch of partnerships. Probably the most famous was with Angry Video Game Nerd. But they actually did have several partnerships that and shows that I actually liked. Stuff like Captain S and Life in a Game. The funniest one is Name Tags, because you probably never heard of it, but you definitely know the guy who created it because it was written, directed, and starring Pro Jared. But this is before he actually sort of became a thing. This is like 2008. And the best way to describe it is it's Scrubs set in a GameStop. And it was actually kind of funny. It was pretty entertaining. I enjoyed it. And there was sort of a humility about a lot of this stuff, like a humbleness is the best way to describe it, because a lot of these people, I feel that YouTube these days is very commercialized. It's very much like you have to have a thumbnail that has like, you know, all these arrows and circles and making a smug face, and you've got to do all these stupid jokes and all this kind of stuff. And it's like back then people were a little bit more humble. You know, they didn't do cheap content. They actually tried to put effort and fun. And sure, it was low budget. It was amateurish. But you know what? You could tell that there was a passion and a heart behind it. And I miss that. I really do. And so this was just something that I just wanted to quickly just sort of... This was just an idea I had for a segment. That's all. Anyway, folks, I'm going to take a short break, and I'll be right back after this. All right, and we're back, folks. And for a moment, I want to talk about Google Stadia because this is it's pretty funny. Basically, Google is now backpedaling about Stadia. So let me explain this. So if you don't know what Stadia is, it's basically Google's streaming platform. It's basically their own version of like PlayStation Now or whatever. And it's going to be there's going to be a paid version that's $10 a month, and you get 4K resolution, 60 frames, all kind of stuff. And then there's a free version where you get 1080p, and that's 1080p and I think maybe 30 frames, and that's it. And then there's like a founder's version. I don't know. It's never been clear what that entails exactly. But what was interesting about when Stadia, when they first announced it, is they kept saying that, oh, well, it's going to be like the Netflix of games. You're going to pay $10 and you're going to have access to 30 titles. Okay? However, it seems that they've been trying to change their tune on this, because a few days afterwards, Phil Harrison, and you may recognize that name because he was one of the guys at Sony. He was the one who at E3 2006 did the rubber ducky demo for the PS3. Yeah, that's him. Now he's running Stadia. He left Sony in 2008, I think, and I don't know what he's done since. But it's like, isn't it interesting how after he leaves, suddenly the PS3 brand sort of just like it just sort of just gets a little bit better. Like, because those first 4 years of the PS3 was not good at all. Anyway, in an interview with Eurogamer, he talked about pricing. He talked about how well, publishers will control the pricing of the games, all this kind of stuff, and everyone was like, "Hold up, wait a minute, what do you mean pricing? Because you just said it's $10 a month, and you're talking about how this is the Netflix of games. And as you know how Netflix works, you pay $13 a month, and you get unlimited access to all the movies in their library. Okay, and of course they'll swap a few out here and there, but you have unlimited access to everything that's available there. Okay, and now they're talking about pricing on this, and so now they're backpedaling. Now they're saying, well, it's not actually the Netflix of games. Now they're saying that it's like PlayStation Now or Games for Gold, in which basically you have to buy games full priced, and that once a month you'll get one free game. Ooh, I mean, I think that's a bit ridiculous, don't you think? I mean, you sell this service as the Netflix of games, and now suddenly it's not. Now suddenly it's well, you have to buy everything else full price, and even then, it's like, okay, define full price, because if you're expecting people to pay $60 for a game that they do not locally own, for a game that's not on disc, not on cartridge, not even on a hard drive, it's on a server somewhere out in California. Okay, that to me is a ripoff. You're basically being ripped off there. You know, it's just I don't trust these streaming services at all. This is why I don't like streaming services, and this is why I don't like really digital games at all. I usually see I only buy digital games when there's sales, and that's basically it. And usually it's so I could like maybe just try it out. So like, let's say for example, Steam has a sale, it's like $5 for like some game that came out a few years ago. It's like, okay, I'll play that for a bit on Steam, and then later on I'll get the physical copy of it. You know, that's how I usually do things. And because when I pay $60 for a game, I expect that to be on a disc or a cartridge. Okay, I don't expect that as a digital file saved on my hard drive, and I sure as hell don't expect it as a file on a server somewhere on the other side of the country. So I seriously do not trust Google at all. I have no faith in Stadia. I don't think this is going to be a success. I could be wrong. I will hold that. I could be wrong. Remember, there were people who thought the Xbox was about the worst idea they had ever heard of since the Virtual Boy. And that's a direct quote. There's an old issue of Expert Gamer I have. I had to pull it out and maybe post it on Twitter because it's funny. But it was a letter of the month because I think it was the Xbox had just been announced. Or they were going to be at GDC, and the guy, like, their letter of the month, the guy flat out says the Xbox is the worst idea since the Virtual Boy. But, no, I could be wrong. It could be successful. I mean, hell no. We know it's Google. But Google, of course, as we all know, can screw things up. And right now they're screwing things up with YouTube. So, who knows? I could be wrong. I could be right. It could be... Right now it's Schrodinger's service, basically. It could be... It's both a success and a failure. But anyway, like I said, I have no faith in this thing. Especially since they're now backtracking and trying to say that, well, it's not Netflix of games. It's not. It's more like Games for Gold. Okay, Google. Anyway, folks, I'm going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this. Alright, folks, and that's it for the first episode of the Single Player Podcast. I want to thank you all for listening. This was just something I've been thinking of doing for some time, and I thought, you know what, I might as well. Usually at this point, I would do, I want to start doing like questions and answers. If you guys remember an old segment I used to do that I called Question of the Week, I want to start doing that in sort of like an end of the episode sort of thing. So if you got any sort of questions regarding gaming or whatever, just let me know. Put them in the comments section or tweet them out, and I'll answer them on the next episode. But yeah, I want to thank you all for listening, and I'll see you next week. Remember that video games will never die.